Hi there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. My name's Anna Pirelli. The comments that you see here are my views, beliefs, opinions, and sometimes they are not even my fully formed views, beliefs, and opinions. However, they are my understandings. Please do retain an open mind and reflect on any of the content and your comfort levels. If your views differ, please feel free to leave a comment. Also remember, it is possible to disagree in respectful ways. My way is not necessarily your way and vice versa. You might also find that some of the content on this playlist in regard to spiritual or universal laws, it resonates with you, meaning it feels right to you, while other laws may not feel right or they may not feel comfortable. If this is the case, the information is either not right for you or it is not right for you right now, and it might never be right for you at any given time. It really doesn't matter. As an earthy and practical person, I can put my hand up with all honesty and say that I have at different times had the same feelings about some of the content in here, and with some of them I still have a level of skepticism within my viewpoints, but I choose to retain an open mind about the things that I don't fully understand for a few reasons. Firstly, because I believe it would be supreme arrogance to think that we all know all of the answers while we have a body. And because what is right for one of us is not necessarily right or suitable for all of us, and I choose to respect the differences. Please do leave your opinions, beliefs. Feel free to argue the points in a respectful way with any of the content on the slides and even my interpretations. And if you feel that you can add clarity around some of the content, we would all love to see it. Thank you. For now, though, let's explore the laws.
All creation is governed by law. The principles that operate in the outer universe, discoverable by scientists, are called natural laws. But there are subtler laws that rule the hidden spiritual planes and the inner realm of consciousness. Contained within these laws, or conditions, is the true nature of matter. Knowledge of these laws has an effect upon the mental urges. Mind is the builder. Stay in full mindfulness of the application of universal law as related to self and to others, and know that in love all life is given, in love all things move. In giving one attains, in giving one acquires. In giving, love becomes the fulfillment of desire, guided and directed in the ways that bring the more perfect knowledge of self as related to the universal, all-powerful, all-guiding, all divine influence in life. Love is life. When we go back, merge with the God source, in some infinitesimal but profound way, we expand the mind of God. Our higher self always points the best and most perfect way, and it is ours to listen and choose or reject what we hear. It does not blame, but patiently tries again to show the perfect way, the loving way. All of creation pushes forth. We are ever becoming. Identity ever remains. Universal law number 32. The law of gender. The law of gender embodies the truth that gender is manifested in everything. The masculine and feminine law is ever at work on all planes of causation. Gender manifests on all three planes of causation, which are the great spiritual plane, the great mental plane, and the great physical plane. The law is always the same on all planes, but on the higher planes, it takes higher forms of manifestation. The law of gender works in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. All life forms contain the two elements of gender, masculine and feminine. On the great physical plane, the sexes of all species are manifested as male and female, and the role they play in sexual reproduction. On the great mental plane, gender manifests as masculine and feminine energies that exist within each and every person. Every male has its female element, and every female has its male element. On the great spiritual plane, gender manifests as the father-mother principle of the infinite omnipresent God in whose mind the universe is conceived and firmly held. It is written, "We all live, move, and have our being within God." When balance and learning reach a critical mass, The personality achieves the merger of God and sees self as neither male or female, but as one blended self.
So, in regard to the comment that gender manifests in everything, I interpret this along the lines of polarities and what is referred to as masculine and feminine energy. Yes, it is interpreted as male and female and black and white. However, this makes sense to me without a problem because I do understand the idea of polarities and duality. And I also realised many years ago, before I actually found any research on it, that the traditional feng shui symbolised exactly what this law is saying, that there are, well, this is how I interpret it, that there are two aspects. There is the masculine, there is the feminine, there is the male, there is the female. But within each of the energies and each of the genders, there is the capacity to hold a little bit of the other, and we see this in the symbol, as I said. So going back to the law here, from a third dimensional perspective, on the earth plane, I like the way that it outlines that the duality of gender is for the purposes of reproduction of the species. Of course, we need male and female. We need people with XX and XY. Within modern society, of course, we have people that can change their gender from a visual perspective, and I think this adds complexity actually to life and the laws. But this law clearly states that gender is about reproduction. And if we look at it, so this is a bit of a political thing here, that I interpret the law as inferring that gender is gender. On the earth plane, we are born into it for a specific purpose, and that is for the purposes of procreation. And that just because we may identify as the other gender, that doesn't mean that we actually change gender on an earthly level. Once again, just a reminder, I'm talking about male and female, masculine and feminine. I have to admit, though, that as science progresses and they talk about things like artificial uteruses and IVF, I think that can become confusing. But also, at the end of the day, whether they use artificial reproduction processes or not, there is still a requirement at this point in time for XX and XY as part of the reproduction process. However, I'm aware that science is also looking at cloning, so it just gets more and more confusing. Anyway, going further along, I want to say that all those people that may identify as different genders or have transgender surgery or whatever, I don't think that this law is actually saying anything against this, because the law goes on further and refers to the mind and the spiritual planes. And I have long thought about this as well. And once again, this is represented with the feng shui symbol. I suspect in some ways this law, when we talk about, might challenge the idea of people being born into the wrong body type, because I had the understanding that during the soul creation process, we're born as masculine or feminine with a counterpart. You know, that's the whole business of twin flames. What else could I say? Just that this law prompted me to think and reflect on it a bit differently, because I do believe that people's motives are going to be different things for different people. You know, if we say that it's all on the mental plane, then some people may genuinely feel that they've been born into the wrong body. But then there might be other people that are just not comfortable with their own gender for whatever the reasons are, and so they want to change gender. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a person's free choices and free will anyway. And it comes back to, I think it's not for me to sit there and judge anybody else for how they choose to live their life and how they choose to identify. Not only that, when we think about gender on the higher planes, well, of course, you know, the higher we raise our vibration, I already understand this, but the higher we raise our vibration, the less focused we are on being one or the other. And by that I'm talking about energy, masculine or feminine. We get a balance within our own internal workings, our own energy fields. So to me, I can see the idea that that we would be encouraged on the earth plane to strive not to be too much of one or the other. feng shui symbol, remember? I'm going to ask people here that if they have a different viewpoint, that, or even if they have a viewpoint that agrees with the semi-conclusions that I'm reaching, that they be respectful when they put their comments up, because it's such a sensitive issue to people, and it really becomes a core vulnerability for people. So, I just ask that people give respect and consideration. So once again, I'm just throwing ideas in the mix and conversations, because I'm not going to make conclusions about other people here. The reference to the mental plane, I really had to ask myself, what is this actually inferring, that people that claim to be born into the wrong body, I kind of touched on this before, or non-binary, from a political perspective, we might turn around, this is why I say it's so sensitive. There would be some people that say, well, they're off with the fairies. Is this what this law is saying? That gender discussions are a belief as opposed to a reality? And this is putting it into context. This is because this law is stating that there are only two genders when it comes to the earthly dimension. That is male and female, and we have two genders only for the purposes of procreation. So if we're going to have a dialogue or a conversation about anything other than male and female, that raises the questions of, are we talking about a person's belief system? Are we talking about their attitudes and thoughts? Are we talking about them being off with the fairies and not dealing with reality? These are questions I've found myself asking. So anyway, I reached a few conclusions. I realised that there would be some people that would say definitely that, and this is why the subject is political and becomes volatile, that there would be some people that would be quite derogatory about the way a person identifies. But what I came back to was, I suspect that each person who expresses an alternate gender identity, the basis and substance of their personal expression is going to be determined by their own individual beliefs, and it's not going to be the same for all people. So I'm going out on a limp too, that people perhaps identify as non-binary are actually what we could call gender balanced. If we're looking at what it is on the mental and spiritual planes where we're seeking to have gender balance. And by that I mean that they have an equal measure of feminine and masculine energy within them, like the feng shui symbol. I'm not making any firm conclusions here, okay? I just remember working with a young girl who was about 14 at the time, and she explained to me that she identified as being non-binary, non-binary, because she woke up some days feeling more female and other days she woke up feeling male, and she would dress accordingly and behave accordingly to how she felt each day. Now, of course, we all do this, and I'm doing it right now, is when we hear information, we try to rationalize it and apply our perception to it to get a bit of empathy or a little bit more understanding and awareness. So if I was to apply her response and attitude to myself, well, I could say, well, some days I wake up feeling more feminine than others too. I'm still a female because I was born with an XX chromosomes, Some days I feel like, we would call it here in Australia an absolute glad hag when I wake up. I feel unattractive and undesirable to the other sex, and some days I might wake up feeling beautiful, attractive and sexy. But for me, regardless of how I wake up, I still wake up feeling like I am a woman. Okay, so I'm not sure how that applies to people that are non-binary. But I'm on the earth plane, so I'm being present here. Then I think what causes concern to a lot of people, older people, and I'm just putting it out here, is that for many of us, as we were developing our identity, we actually did go through this whole looking at our femininity as part of our teenage years of development. I'm just going to make the point here, we're going to be looking at the law of identity coming up in the near future. So I'm not offering you any clarity here. I'm just offering you questions maybe to ask and maybe to expand the mind, that, maybe some people decide that they want to identify as the other gender because they've got issues around their own gender, genitalia, physical image because of unpleasant experiences. Maybe it can be, like I say, because they've got this inherent energetic balance within them. They feel comfortable to be one or the other or both. Yeah, I think the only time I would take issue around this whole business of the law of gender and applying it, because at the end of the day, when we talk about the universal laws, we're talking about universal laws for the third dimension on the earth plane. I think from a practical application of this law, what I might take issue to, and I do take issue to it, is that I also recognise that under spiritual law or energetic law, as well as the Human Rights Convention, and I don't want to take this down a political pathway, and I do apologise if it's getting political, that we all have human rights. We all have that right to autonomy and to our own decision making as part of living authentically in the truth of who we are, with the freedom of speech, beliefs, religion and expression and that. Okay, so this goes for all people regardless of how they identify. So as a human being, I do resent being told that I have to identify as something other than a woman. And by that I mean people turning around and saying I have to put cis at the front now so that people know I'm a natural born woman. It's like, well, actually, you don't have the right to tell me how I define and express myself. That's how I feel. But then I also know that there is that law of resistance, that what we resist persists. So the more I make an objection to people making decisions for me about how I identify, the more they're going to think that they have the right to try and force me to do what they want. So it all becomes very complex. My understanding is that under the Human Rights Charter and under spiritual law, people have the right to ask that we might do something. So if somebody is transgender, they have the right to ask you, me, or other women that are born women if we would like to put a pronoun at the front of our gender, but they don't have the right to expect that. And we have the right to say no, and then they have a responsibility to respect our right to say no as well. Now, I know this is going to be such a hot potato, but I'm a little older now, and being transgender is not a new phenomena, okay? People have been getting surgeries since at least the 1980s. I remember I knew people actually when I was pregnant, so that was 1988, 1989. I remember I was working with a lady that was transgender. Now you can hear there within my tone, when I say lady that was transgender, she was a male to female transgender. Beautiful woman, and I've got all the time in the world for them. But at no time ever did she insist that she be acknowledged as a woman in the fullness of womanhood, because she understood she did not have an XX chromosome, so she could never be a woman. She could identify as a woman, she could wear women's clothes, she could even look a bit like a woman and all the rest of it. But at no time ever did they attempt, or did she and her demographic attempt to impinge on the rights of women, because women have struggled over the centuries anyway, simply to be acknowledged as women. And if I go to my social work stuff, I do recall a saying there that, when we are providing rights to people, the vulnerable demographics, which clearly people with gender identification stuff, they are vulnerable, they're in the minority, right? But when we as a society are attempting to empower them to live healthily and be authentic, be true to themselves as to who and what they are, my understanding is that this doesn't mean taking away the rights of other people to speak and live to their truth and be their authentic self. And I know this is going to be a hot potato. So once again, I say, look, I really look forward to us having a discussion about this. I think it would be a beautiful subject for lives, for us to talk about in kindness and loving ways about how to expand the light within all of us. So yeah, look, with respect, I ask you to keep your comments respectful as well, and please do let me know what your thoughts. Maybe we can nut this out. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.